Talk about creativity, we talk about music and film and all of that, but in the interest of not letting things go too quickly and Israel being front of mind, I'd like to hear about your trip.
Yeah, I just got back. I was there with my cousin Harvey. We went for 3 weeks. Decided the night before Thanksgiving, we were all just hanging out, drinking, said we should just go to Israel. It was one of those. It was great. We went with the idea of volunteering, but while I was there, I got some ideas. I write a monthly column for an aviation magazine called Flying Magazine, and it's usually not political in any way. It's just about my adventures flying around the country in a small single-engine Bonanza. But when I was there, I thought this is an opportunity, and I have a lot.
That's how you got to Israel in a small.
Yeah, right. I wish. No, it was El Al. Okay. But so when we got there, I thought this is an opportunity. I know a few friends who are ex-pilots in the IDF, both Apache guys, and so I ended up. I tried to just get to a military base, but I ended up getting access to what's called a Fire Direction Center. And they told me I am the only Western journalist, or any Westerner, period, who got to go into one of these rooms. And it's maybe 3 times the size of this smallish room that we're in, and 15 people, monitors everywhere, and they decide and pick targets and engage targets from this room. Wow. So they'll call in. They basically have an officer for each of the 4 possible weapons platforms. So it'd be artillery, helicopter, fixed wing like F-16s, F-35s, and then artillery. I mean, we're jumping right into it here.
But that's how you get into the secret ops intelligence units of Israel. He writes for Fly Magazine. Let him in. It's okay.
Did you say Fly Magazine?
And I know Gadi.
Flying? Oh, okay, he can come.
And I know Gadi. Oh, you know Gadi.
You know Gadi. Oh, okay. Sit. Ben. Okay, bueno. Look. Okay, so watch this.
And Shai. No, Gadi and Shai. They're like, okay, well, clearly.
Wow.
That's fascinating because I've obviously seen videos of explosions and strikes, but I don't know how they happen at all.
Right. So it's funny you mentioning explosions and strikes. What I saw in the room, and this is what I just wrote about for my monthly column, was actually, and I did see one, and I'm happy to talk to you about it. What I saw was restraint on an order that they don't advertise. And we could talk about how sort of Hasbara needs some real help. That's the Israeli PR system there. They just, look, they're in the middle of a war, and it's not even like when we've been in, this country's been in war for 30 years. It's always been overseas.
Yeah.
So the PR department is immune to the actual daily vagrancies of war. They're polished. They bring you in. They have everything set up. There, it's like it's a country at war. So how we look at it is not exactly the most important thing that they're dealing with.
They also have the greatest storytellers in the world who are Jewish who probably want to help them. You know what I mean?
Like Jackie Mason, you mean?
And anybody in Hollywood
who could tell a story,
would probably be thrilled to get that call. I could help you out.
Yeah,
and they don't use it at all.
But the thing is, they didn't even. I don't think they really actually understood. They understood the Flying Magazine. It's an internationally recognized. It's the biggest aviation publication in the world. But they didn't really know anything else. They didn't do much background. It's kind of interesting.
It's an Israeli thing.
It's very Israeli.
Okay, so you like the planes? It's nice. Tell your friend. I think they're going to love the planes. They're going to love the planes. But here's the thing. I'm always conflicted about this because I always feel like Israel is in this emotionally abusive relationship with the Western world that hates it.
Yeah.
And it's in a physically abusive relationship with its enemies right next door. But to the rest of the world that perceives it negatively as a default, it's an emotionally abusive relationship. And when you try to appease your abusers, it only makes it worse. Like I think about a relationship where, well, if only I showed you my good, how good I am, they're going to hate it more and more. Because if people object to Israel's very existence, if it offends them, a prosperous Jewish state, right? Then to the extent that Israel is doing the right thing and the virtuous thing, it will make its enemies and its detractors more upset.
Yeah, it's just when you're being gaslit by the world, it's hard to stay silent. I have a friend who I just debated this with the other day. What I wrote for Flying had to be obviously around general aviation. But what I saw went way past that. And so I was going to submit something to the Times as an op-ed. And she said to me, sort of the idea that what you just described, that phenomenon that Jews have, because we're always in a constant state of shock that you couldn't possibly believe that, right? So she says, if someone says you're a pig, you're not going to actually deny it. It's so obvious.
Yeah.
And my feeling is we're in a position where we almost are forced to do so, because by that logic, we shouldn't engage with Holocaust deniers. We should just assume, well, everyone's going to know the truth. That's absurd, but they don't.
Yeah.
We're living in such an upside down world that those things have to be. We have to say no. We don't have a snout or horns in
Yeah.
case.
Right.
But it is below us, and yet at the same time, it seems
Yeah.
like something we have to do.
I guess, as the lies are out there, if you don't say something or put up a shield, eventually it will break through. You can't just, I guess, rest on the laurels of people assuming.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Silence is almost like a sort of an admission of guilt. It's
I wonder. I don't know. I think the posture means a lot, and like the dignity and pride that we often don't show would go a longer way than we think it does.
Is that in agreement with what he? With
No, I think I mean I don't know. I think it's probably disagreeing. I don't know if I'm right or
in other words,
wrong,
what?
but I
Well,
think
let's in terms of detail on restraint. I'm just
Yeah, I wanna
curious.
hear that too.
What kind of stuff did you see that surprised you,
so.
to the extent that you could talk about it?
Yeah, I can talk about everything I saw. I can't,
Yeah.
There are things there are technologies that I got to see in the room that I was asked not to speak about. But as far as the targeting,
iPhone 16 or something. They're like, he gave it to me. Shh. It's amazing.
yeah, they did things with matzah in that room. Like I don't want to get into it, but
But you saw stuff. You're like, oh wow. So protocol wise,
yeah. So I saw them take out an actual terrorist who I saw a man in a window with an RPG. And it's worth noting that we were looking at this building, and this guy, there's a major in the room who was in charge of the helicopter, which was the platform they decided to use based on, and this is worth talking about too. There was a lawyer in that room who looks at all the strikes. The IDF employs over 100 lawyers
so Jewish.
who just sue every. No,
Can I do something?
no, they're looking at these.
Everything goes.
They're
through a
looking at
chain.
possible targets, and they're deciding whether or not it meets the laws of engagement. So in this case, they decide on a platform based on where are the civilians, where are the soldiers, which platform should we use. They chose a helicopter, Apache, and the major in the room said to me, "Look at that building, 6th floor, where the rocket guy came out. What do you see? What's different?" And it's a very sort of like Bauhaus, very sort of plain-looking civilian building. It's 7 stories high, and I'm looking at it, and I can't tell a difference. He goes, "Look at the 6th floor window. What's different about it?" Sure enough, it was a foot wider on either side than all the other windows. So this is a common modification that Hamas will make to a civilian building so that the guy with the RPG has a better angle of view by widening the window.
When they construct the building, they're widening.
No,
They
did
modify
this-
a
they
unit.
modify it
They
after.
modify it.
to use it.
To use
a
it.
civilian building, and they said this is going to be where
Exactly.
And are this is gonna sound like just super practical, but are you seeing like a color video? Because the videos I see of the strikes are these black and white. I can't tell anything that's going on.
I'm seeing real-time video that is, they have a pretty incredible surveillance capability that's not just drones, but they have King Airs, which are also Beechcraft. They definitely can see what's going on in all. But yeah, some of it's color
Where are the cameras?
in the drones.
In the drones.
Yeah.
They're flying around taking. Oh, it's so cool.
Yeah, it's not like the Jim Carrey movie. What was it?
Truman Show.
Yeah, it's not like the Truman Show. But they're
thought
doing.
maybe-
You didn't
a
show up at the
soldier.
end like Ed Harris. Hello.
Hello, guys.
So
I saw
so
them
we
take out.
watched that, yeah.
Then what I saw 2 things that were interesting. One was a donkey pulling a 2-wheeled wagon with a guy who was just getting after it. I mean, he was just going as fast as you could tell from the overhead. By things it was passing, it was hauling ass down the street, and I thought, like, there's no other civilians around. What is this guy doing? I didn't have a complete judgment, but it just didn't feel right to me. And I was like, "What are you going to do? What are you going to do?" I actually didn't ask that. They were very busy. And when I say,
What do you do now?
When I say this was no dog and pony show for the American, I mean, at one point I got knocked over physically.
Wow.
They did not like that I was there. Did not care that I was there. No one offered me a seat or said hello to me. It was pretty like they're doing a job.
Yeah.
It's a Khatimi. There's a,
Yeah, I saw a lot
I
of
kn-
this.
yeah. That's a funny position to be in, just
They
standing.
drink all the coffee.
Oh, I was just up against the wall, and I mean, I'm 6'4".
You're like
It's
knocking
hard
over,
for me to
pushing a button. Sorry,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Can I just do one? Can I do one?
Can I get anyone anything?
Oh my God.
I'm going to do a coffee run. So I
So the
see them.
donkey guy,
They,
yeah.
So the four officers,
Yeah.
the artillery, the fixed wing, the heli,
Yes.
the drone guy, they all start talking, and they decide, no, we're not doing this. So they don't engage. Why? I asked the major. He's like, because the guy on the wagon is not holding a weapon, and they zoomed into the tarp that was covering the back, and we just don't know what's there. We can't just strike that. Great. I hear mazeh, mazeh. A few minutes later, and by the way, they're playing solitaire in between. Like they're trying to pass the time. It's
Right.
interesting. I see one guy literally playing solitaire on like an old PC. Then this new call comes in, and it's 5 guys running down the street. Single file line. They're staying close to the building. Again, this is an area completely devoid of civilians. And I see them sort of sprinting along. I'm like, this doesn't look great. Like, these guys look like they look combatants to me. But, you know, I'm affiliated, and they were more objective than I was, is the point I'm trying to make. They said, they conferred, no. Why? Because they were not holding weapons. We just don't, we don't know. Those could be 5 guys who were civilians who were let go out of a building, who knows what. What's interesting is later that day, this major called me, and he said that ground forces stopped the wagon with the donkey, and it was completely filled with RPG warheads and anti-tank warheads. So the restraint is something that Israel doesn't show, but I feel like is worth, like I said, no one's been in that room.
Yeah.
I feel like it was worth talking about here and wherever else, because they only show, like you said, those strikes. They don't show them pulling back or not doing, but there's a lot of that.
Yeah.
But part of me thinks they're with the strikes. They're not talking to kids on TikTok in America with those videos. They're trying to talk to the rest of the Middle East, saying like, "Hey, we aren't as restrained as you might think we are, so don't mess around."
You think that's the point of that?
I think
he's right.
Or
I think he's right. I think Israel has 2 audiences. The Hasbara has 2 audiences.
Yeah, yeah.
One is the Middle East, which respond very, very well to strength, and they don't want to see restraint. Restraint is not a deterrent to who.
right.
And then the other audience is us, the rest of the world. And I think it's a sort of a distant second as far as audiences go and what's very pertinent.
Didn't it give you like also just this deeper perspective on just how absurd it is that journalists in the West, and I got into it with a couple of anchors recently on a program on the Hill where it was like asking me questions about military tactics. And I'm like,
That I saw that.
yeah, and I'm like, I don't know, and neither do you.
Yeah.
And how comfortable is it for us to say, don't conduct the war this way? Like you're casting aspersions and judgments on a type of procedure you know nothing about. It's like judging doctors performing surgery. Well, I don't think they should have used that tool for the spine.
Yeah.
And I'm like, did you go to med school? Do you know how to fix a spine? Well, no, but it just seems like that person's limping now. So you must have done something wrong.
Which, to be fair, people actually do. I mean, look at COVID. Look at everything. Everyone does their research and then opines very easily.
But what's unique about Israel is it's Israel's military and the way it conducts. All right.
Hey,
it's Israel's. Something just happened here from a joke. No, Israel's military, the way it gets scrutinized, not just to the level of detail of like every decision it makes, and like you see wars and stuff that go on all around the world that optically look similar and comparable to Israel's, but only Israel gets held to this crazy standard where when Israel's engaged in a war, somehow, even though the optics look similar to other wars, it's somehow subject to this harsh judgment and scrutiny from the same people who know nothing about how to conduct a war. Like, what do they expect war to look like? You know what I mean? And so
then that's where, look.
So when you came away from this experience, I would imagine it would give you the sense of, wow, people know nothing.
Yeah.
But
the example you just gave, it's like you can, every one of those examples that you give, you can make sort of one of 2 decisions. One is anti-Semitism is rampant and it's affecting even sort of anchors that you talk to. Or that a war has never been televised like this before, which you could make a case. I'm always looking for the, please say it's not Jew hatred, because if it is, I have no answer. If it's a TikTok war has never occurred before, no one's ever seen what the depravities of war look like, I much prefer that answer.
Yes, I know.
I remember on October 9th, so I keep I'm observant, so I was keeping the Yontif, and then we turned on our phones the night, Sunday night after it all happened. I remember me and my wife both went straight to Instagram. I remember thinking oh wow, we're gonna experience this war on Instagram. That's how we're gonna get our news, and that's gonna be very different and kind of scary. And that's exactly what's happened.
Yeah.
But it's not unique that Israel has gotten held to this crazy standard and level of scrutiny. I don't know what the answer is. It always seems low resolution to just throw out, it's Jew hatred. I don't want to say that. Right. And also, it is more complicated, I think. I don't like telling people they feel something about Jews without them realizing it. That to me doesn't seem constructive or productive at all, to say it is anti-Semitic what you're doing when they themselves aren't realizing it. But I think a lot of the conversation around Israel, if brought to their realization, you realize you're only caring about this issue, uniquely holding Israel to this standard and not the other, destruction around the world or conflict. It's only this one that animates you in such a way.
Well, what's the difference? One, you're just using the word Jews, and but those arguments are both the same.
Yeah, no. So I just I know we had this conversation with Rabbi Wolpe when he was on about there may be a gap in your self-awareness, in someone's self-awareness. If the only state that offends you is the Jewish one, if the only state that's not allowed to, as Douglas Murray says, win a war is Israel, then there may be a gap in your self-awareness. But yeah.
What was your relationship to Israel before October 7th? Were you like mired in this stuff and like?
No, I've been before. I taught a master class at Tel Aviv University on directing.
Yeah.
I love Israel. It always did feel like a home. It just never felt like one that. Look, American Jews look at Israelis as like Puerto Rican Jews, for lack of a better way of saying it. Basically, like tough Jews that cannot be fucked with, versus Jews in the diaspora who are sort of just trying to keep a low profile. So I think that we never thought of Israel as a country that needed much help.
Right.
We ourselves felt more vulnerable than Israelis did. October 7th changed all of that. So I had a close connection to Israel, but it didn't feel like it does now, where, this is existential. Like, we may lose this place that I thought didn't need much help from us.
Right.
Puerto Rican Jews, I like the idea that they, when you arrive in Israel, like, come on in, it's okay, we're going to get some planes.
They're just barbecuing.
Yeah, plantanos everywhere.
I feel like it's also there's two traumatic events that happened. There's the obvious events of October 7th and witnessing like the slaughter of Israelis and Jews, and then the world's apathy towards it that still, I think, has not been